When it comes to waiting, anxiety can come up for us, right? So one of the things that I think is very pivotal and important for us to hold on to is things that we can do in those moments that anxiety does come up to calm our nervous system. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you are doing well. If you are walking through a season of waiting, I'm talking to you today. And the thing that happens when we are walking through a season of waiting, there is something we're believing for, that our heart is longing for, that is sometimes outside of our control. And when that takes place, that can cause us to feel a little bit of anxiety come up. And if I'm being honest, a lot of anxiety can come up during that season. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how it can feel to walk through a season of waiting and what we can do while we're walking through that season to walk through the season with a little bit more ease. So I am sipping on some kombucha today. I'm trying out this Wild Wonder Pineapple Paradise. So grab whatever you need and let's get started. The reality is we've all walked through these seasons. We are believing for something that we haven't quite seen yet. We're believing for a healing, we're believing for a breakthrough, we're believing for some type of unanswered prayer to take place. So many things that we're all individually believing for, that the list could go on and on. So one of the biggest things that can come up for us when we're walking through the season of waiting is anxiety. And you know, our body's natural response is going to be to feel anxious when something is happening outside of our control. And there's several reasons why we start to feel anxious walking through a season of waiting. Like I mentioned, feeling that lack of control, like as humans, when we don't feel like we have control over a situation, it can become very frustrating. We can be walking through a season of waiting and start to recognize, I can't rush this season by. Like I'm here and there's nothing I can do about it. And that can be frustrating alone. And then there's that uncertainty that can come in, that's mixed in there as well, of like, is this gonna happen? How is it gonna happen? Did God really say that? Maybe he didn't. And what if this doesn't happen in my life? Like there's that uncertainty that follows as well. And that uncertainty can cause our thoughts to begin to spiral and swarm in our mind. So then one negative thought gets built off of another negative thought, and then another negative thought is thrown in there as well. So now we have all these thoughts spiraling in our mind. Feeling stuck is another reason that anxiety can come up in those seasons of waiting. If we feel trapped in a waiting period or season in our life, that can lead to a lot of frustration. That makes me think about one time I took my niece to an aquarium. You know, like there's like these little peep holes, I guess, where like kids can go into these smaller spaces and like see the fish from a different angle. Auntie decided she was gonna go in there, and I went into this little cave that was designed for like 7-year-olds or 10-year-olds or something. And I went in there and I was like trying to look with her, you know, it seemed cool at the moment. But once I got in there, I felt stuck and I started to panic. Not gonna lie, because like I was like, how do I get out? And then there was little kids like on each side of me and like adults on each side of me. So now I'm like stuck in this little tiny cave. There's nothing but this little bubble where you can see the fish, and I was not well. And it made me think about like how we sometimes feel emotionally when we are in a season of waiting. We feel stuck. Feeling stuck isn't fun. With all of these things mixed together, feeling stuck, uncertainty, fear of the unknown, things outside of our control, all of those mixed together can cause us to start to feel anxiety coming up. The first thing I want to talk about is reframing our perspective when we're walking through a season of waiting. So I personally work with a lot of clients who are dealing with anxiety and depression. And one of the things that I'm intentional about working with them on is reframing. Essentially here, we're shifting those unhealthy, those unproductive thoughts into more positive and balanced thoughts. We can do this as we're walking through a season of waiting as well. How this applies to waiting is we can shift it from, this is my season of waiting, I'm just waiting, when is it going to happen? We can shift those thoughts into, this is my preparation season. So looking at different ways that you can start to prepare yourself for whatever you're believing for, or just for you, just so you can become this better version of yourself. I think that there's so much power in that. Like, what can you be doing? How can you grow? How can you develop? How can you take better care of yourself during this time? Like, how can you be intentional about something that you want to work towards, like pinpointing a goal and saying like, I need a mentor for it. I want to start a business. I, want to be intentional about my health. I want to be intentional about healing. I want to start going to therapy. Like, how can you really be intentional about this preparation season and how you are preparing for whatever is to come in your future, or how you are being intentional about taking care of you during this time. I once was like watching a Sarah Jakes podcast or something, and she was like, and someone on the podcast was talking about like waiting for a baby. And one of the questions that was posed was, what can God still birth through you during this waiting season? And that really resonated with me, and I feel like it can apply to any waiting season of our life, of like, what can still be birthed through me during this season? I think that's an amazing question. Like, looking at it from the lens of like, what are the 3 goals that I can accomplish or that I'm desiring to accomplish over these next 90 days, or attach some time to it, figure out what your 3 goals are, and then start working towards them. Because I feel like when we're waiting, there's so much that can still be developed in us and through us. Maybe there's something that God is wanting to do through you during this season. So really being intentional about reframing the season and looking at it as a preparation time, and like, what can you do to prepare during this season of your life? Another thing that I personally find helpful is looking for ways to stay connected to your faith during this season of waiting. When we are in a season of waiting, it can create this level of frustration that can slowly chip away our faith. And we can even recognize that, you know what, I used to always pray for that thing, and now I don't even like really pray about it anymore. Like, am I still even, like, my faith is not where it needs to be. So being very intentional about doing things to empower us during this season of waiting. In the realm of faith, I've had to realize that there's beauty in letting go. There's beauty in releasing what it is that I just want to hold so tightly onto and just want to make happen. There's beauty in letting that go and handing it over to God. And relinquishing that control does not mean that I'm giving up. It means that I'm trusting and that I'm having more faith in that season, and knowing that, like, you know what, God did promise me this, and what I have to do in this season is figure out ways to uplift my faith. At the end of the day, I also feel like if things always happen in the moment that we thought it should happen, we may be ill prepared. Like, we may not even be ready. Like, there may be things that God is doing to develop and grow us so that we can be ready for whatever it is that we are believing for. So what we can do here to hold on to our faith, and it's one small thing, but it's write down a verse and like have that verse so we can rely on it in those times where we need just something to lift us up a little bit. Like, for me, the way that I affirm myself, or maybe write down an affirmation, is something that ties back into a verse. Like, actually, I may affirm myself by just legit pausing throughout the day and being like, actually, do not be anxious for anything. Do not be anxious for anything. Make your requests known to God. Like, pray, release, like, let it be known to God. Like, that is the way that I'm talking to self. Finding something to hold on to in those moments where you may need a little bit more encouragement to navigate that season or that day. All right, so the next thing is being intentional about caring for ourselves deeply. Like, I mean, on a deep, like, soul level, like doing some deep work and like understanding what your needs are in this season, I think is so important. So figuring out, you know what, if I'm not having a great day, this is what I can turn to. This is what I can do. This is what makes me feel full again. What is that? Like, really taking some time to reflect and explore what those things are. Understanding what your triggers are in this season. Your triggers in this season may not look like they looked before. You may not can go to the same place or have the same conversation and it not bother you. Be intentional about your healing, seeking professional help during this time. You guys know I'm all here for, and talking to a therapist, like being intentional about taking care of your mental health during this season. Recognizing that, you know what, I do need support. Like, who can I lean on? When it comes to waiting, anxiety can come up for us, right? So one of the things that I think is very pivotal and important for us to hold on to is things that we can do in those moments that anxiety does come up to calm our nervous system. So creating a list of 5 things that you can do, save it on the notes app on your phone to calm your nervous system in those moments, whatever it looks like for you. My list is things like having some tea, going on a walk, going to the sauna, working out, reading. Like, those are some things that's personally on my list, but figure out what it is for you that is helpful. The latest addition to my list has been Pilates. So like, if I can sneak in a class, I feel like that's so calming to my nervous system. So essentially having a list of different things that you can do, that you can pull from. So you're not even really thinking about it on those days. You just look at your phone and pull something from it. I think there's power in acknowledging our emotions, acknowledging what is coming up, and figuring out how to navigate it and navigate it well. Like, I feel like I don't ever want to walk through a season and say, man, I wish I would have walked through that season differently, because we'll never get it back. And I feel like there's so much beauty in each day. Like, even if we are waiting, there's so much beauty in the waiting season. There's so much gratitude we can pull in and just hold on to in those seasons of waiting. So I really hope this blessed you. I really hope that it helped you if you are walking through a season of waiting. And if it did, let me know. Let me know below. Like, how are you navigating this season? What are some things that you're gonna start doing to navigate this season well? Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.